Yes. You can hear me? Gili, you hear me? No. Someone? Shashi, Avi, someone just want to give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? Yeah. People on Zoom, I had someone called me up and told me that it's easier to learn on Zoom with your camera on. I don't learn on Zoom, so I can't answer the question. So everyone who's on Zoom, this is not for me. I'm not going to be looking at you. For yourself, apparently it's easier to get involved if your camera is on. So just Eitz Teva, you ready here? You ready on the Zoom? Why not turn on your camera? If we need more Gemaras, I think we might need one or two more Gemaras. We will get more Gemaras in Mirz Hashem. But let's get started before we dive in. As everyone makes himself at home with the sushi, the drinks, we are up to Chaf Aleph, Amid Aleph. I'm going to quickly run through what we did yesterday. And then we're going to get into something new. My taima de Rav Yehuda. We're on the last line. You're good. Don't worry, I'm watching myself over here. My taima de Rav Yehuda. What is the reason of Rav Yehuda? The last line of Chaf Amid Beis. And as we learned, Aaron, nice to see your face. And as we learned, what does it mean? Now you're there. What does it mean? It doesn't mean the reason. It means the source. What is the source of Rav Yehuda? Yalif Oyhel mi Mishkan. Before we go there, what is the din of Rav Yehuda? Hopefully by now this should be sounding repetitive. The din of Rav Yehuda is that you're allowed to sleep under a bed. Why are you allowed to sleep under a bed? You're under a bed. Obviously the bed is not blocking you from being in the sukkah. Why is the bed not blocking you from being in the sukkah? Do I have to talk slower? Or just something on the computer? Okay. Why is the bed not blocking for being in the sukkah? The answer is because you didn't have kavana to build the bed for underneath the bed. And kavana is how Rav Yehuda defines the action. As Rav Gabriel pointed out, it seems like that detail is not a detail that the Gemara even discusses. That's a given. What does it mean, Maisa b'dei Adam? It means kavana. That is what Rav Yehuda learns. So let's get into there. It says the Gemara on the top line. Yalif oyel mi mishkan. It's not something physical. It sounds like the taich, the definition of what does it mean a human being doing something? It means you have a mind to do it. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it because we're human beings with minds. And when we do something for a reason, I hope. So let's get there right now. Very good. Yalif oyel mi mishkan. Ksiv hacha, it says over here with regarding to the din of oyel, zois ha Torah adam ki yamas b'oyel. This is the Torah, this is the laws of a man who dies in a tent, and the detail of dying is that it creates tama. Uksiv hasam, and it says by Mishkan vayifrois esa oyel ala Mishkan, and he spreads out the oyel on the Mishkan. Malahalan, just like over there was bidei Adam, Moshe Rabbeinu is a human being, he spread out on the Mishkan. Avkan bidei Adam, that is the source for Rav Yehuda. There's one more Gemara over here, and in Mirz Hashem we'll get more. If anyone doesn't have Gemara, you have the big monster up there, so feel free to grab in. Rabbanan, how did the Rabbanan answer Rav Yehuda? Rav Yehuda seemingly has a very clear source. It's a Gzeira Shava. It says, Oyel by Moshe Rabbeinu, a man-made act. It says, Oyel where? By Toma, very good. So answers the Rabbanan, Oyel Riba. The Torah has lots of times the extra word Oyel, so it doesn't teach us this Gezerah Shava. That's where we finished yesterday. Hopefully by now it's very clear. The sheet of Rav Yehuda, you sleep under the bed. Why are you allowed to sleep under the bed? Because the bed does not block you. Why does the bed not block you? Because the bed is not made for underneath the bed. What is the bed made for? On top of the bed. What is that called? It's not made bidei Adam. What does it mean it's not made bidei Adam? It's not made bikavana for the underneath of the bed. Where does he learn this out from? Oyel mi Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu did an action by man. Oyel by Toma was done by man. Asks the Gemara 5 lines down. Does everyone have a Gemara? Almost, sort of. Okay, we'll get more Gemaras in Mirz Hashem for next week. There's one more Gemara here. Here. Menachem, pass this Gemara. Zisha's Gemara, but he's not here right now, so share that Gemara. Visavar asks the Gemara. It's going to be a little bit of a long-winded question. I don't even know if we're going to get to the end of it, but let's dive in. Visavar Rav Yehuda. Does Rav Yehuda really hold Kol oyel, any tent, sheinoi asu bidei adam, which is not made by man, einoi oyel, it's not a tent? Does he really hold that? V'reminhu, I will ask you a contradiction. Now, we're going to have a lengthy Mishnah all about para aduma. all about para aduma and the utmost purity. Para aduma creates purity, and the creation of the para aduma, as we're going to see in a moment, was done with absolute precision to not have an ounce of tama. What does that mean? Let's dive in. Chatzeros. They would build. There was a chatzer, literally a courtyard. Haya benuyos b'Yerushalayim. They would build in Yerushalayim. They're building a courtyard. Where are they building this courtyard? Al gabe hasela, on top of a rock. What's this sela? Sela is a form of bedrock. Why bedrock? Because bedrock, we assume there's nothing underneath it. What's underneath it? What's underneath the ground? Well, you never know. Maybe one day someone was buried under this ground, and now there's still a little bit of the dead body under the ground. And by me walking on top of it, what happens? I become tameh. So they built a chutzner, a courtyard on top of a bedrock. Why bedrock? Because we assume there's no tumah under the bedrock. Furthermore, what do they do? V'tachtehem, and underneath the bedrock, underneath the chutzner, chalal, they left an airspace. They left an airspace of a tefach under, so they're basically building an elevated platform with a tefach airspace underneath. Mipnei kevar at hatahoim. Mipnei, because of kever, literally a grave, hatahoim, of the depths. What does that mean? Just in case, maybe, even though it's bedrock, but maybe there is a little bit of a mace underneath there, so they build a courtyard on top of it. So what does that help? If they leave an airspace of a tefach, now where is the oil? The rules of oil is if there, God forbid, would be a dead person in this room, everyone in this room would become tummy. Why? Because we're all under the same roof, the same oil. But someone on top of the roof would not be tummy. Why not? Because he's not under the same oil. So what they would do is they would build a chutzner, a courtyard, leave an airspace underneath it. That airspace is the oil under the ground. Any tumah that would be there would be stuck, trapped under the ground. Now, me and you, if we would walk on top of that platform, even if there was someone dead underneath there, would we become tameh? The answer is no. Let's review that din one more time. It's a little bit of a complicated din. Let's say it one more time. Let's say underneath this ground there was a dead body, and we walked on top of it. We'd all be out to lunch, we're all tameh. But if under this ground there was an airspace of a tefach, then we'd all be saved. Why? Because then the ground is the oil, and underneath the tumah would be trapped, and us on top of it would be tahar. So when they built this chutzner, when they built this courtyard on top of this cell, on top of the bedrock, they left a tefach, an airspace there to trap the tumah, so anyone on top of the courtyard would not be tameh. Now the reason we're doing this, someone has his hand up, 1 second. The reason we're doing this is because we're now going to put children in there, as we're going to see in a minute, and we want these kids to be tar from the moment they are born, so they're going to be the ones to go get the water to eventually mix with the ashes of the para aduma, and to ensure there's not one slight chance of tumah going on there. Let's continue the Mishnah. I'm sorry, I see you have hands up. Give me 1 second, hands on the computer. We're just in the middle of reading. 1 second. We'll get to you in a second. Umevian. Now, what would they do on top of this chutzner? They would bring nashim, women, oivrais, who are pregnant, the yoldais sham, set up a little hospital, and they'd give birth in this courtyard. Why? Because now the moment the baby is born, it can never become tameh, because it's in an area that can never be tameh. Why? Because there's an airspace underneath this courtyard of a tefach, and even if there was a mace underneath it, it would get trapped and it would not go on top of this courtyard. Umigadlois beinehem sham, and they would raise their children there. Le para, for the para aduma. 2 more lines. So far, everything is clear. Are we all good? Yes. We're not good on the computer. Let's try to see if this could work. Go for it.
What do you mean?
Yeah? Lipara, in order to raise for eventually the para aduma. Yes, talk loudly. Go for it. You're on.
Why did they need the sela? If you have
Good. It's an extra precaution. It's a very good question. Rav Shashi is asking, what's the point of being on bedrock? If anyways there is an airspace there. So this goes into something a little bit deeper. There's a whole sugya why they were so careful about this, because in halacha, Do we have to really be concerned about these things? The answer is no. This has to do with something that the Siddukim learned something one way, and therefore the Chachamim went to the opposite extreme to get to a place to make sure there's no Tama, even more than halachically is required. But let's continue. Says the Gemara, again, so they raised the children, lipara, to eventually be the ones to create the para aduma situation. Umevi'in shvarim, now they would bring oxen, val gabehem, and on top of the ox were delasais, were doors. They would make a platform on top of the ox, vitinoikos, and the children would be yoishvin al gabehen, would sit on top of this platform, on top of the ox. And what would they have in their hands? V'koisais shel evan, they'd be holding cups of stone. Why stone? Stone cannot become tameh. Very good, biyadehem. And then they would travel. Higiu l'shiluach. They would reach the shiluach. Shiluach is a stream, is a natural stream. Yardu l'toich hamayim. The children now, this is the first moment in the child's life that it potentially could become tameh, because it's diving off of the ox into the river to do what? Umiluam, to fill up the cup with water. Va'alu, and they would go back up, v'yashvu lahem, and they would return it to them. That is what they did to get the water for the para aduma. For the para aduma, we're actually going to stop right here. This Mishnah actually continues. Let's just review outside what just happened, and then everyone have to read it. It's a little bit of a complicated din. So let's just get this clear one more time. The children are being born in purity. How are they born in purity? They're in a chutzner on top of a sela with an airspace in between. Now, the moment the child grows up and now they have to go and get the water, they got to travel out. How are they going to travel out? We have to be worried that, wait, maybe there's going to be tuma as they're traveling. So they have these big oxen. On the oxen, they put a door, so they're traveling on top of it. Why again? Why are they on top of the doors? Again, very good. Just in case as the ox is traveling, it goes over a dead body. What's going to happen? Nothing. Why? Because again, the door is an oihel, and they're on top of the door.
And the ox can be considered.
Oh, very good, very good. Rav Yehuda is actually going to argue, as we're going to see in a moment, which we're not going to see, we'll see next week. Rav Yehuda is going to say, no, the ox itself is going to act as the barrier. Very good, we're going to get there next week. And then they're going to go, they're going to reach the water. The children, for the first moment of their life, are going to dive down, pick up the cup of water, a stone cup, so that it can never become tameh, and then go back, and that's how they will get the water. What in the world this has anything to do with the... Yes. Very good, which we're going to get to that also. Whether they would go down or whether they would throw the cup over on a string to pick it up. We'll get there. For now, these are complicated few lines. Everyone, let's dive in. We have 2 minutes to Ma'ariv, which hopefully be enough time to read it. And we'll remind everyone that hopefully over the weekend, over Shabbos, it doesn't seem like we did so much, but if everyone at least looks at it once or twice over Shabbos, by the time Sunday comes, it won't be a new, forgotten detail. Let's get going.